Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Friday, the 17th of April, comes to you from London. And we're holding on to this new high in US markets. So that's really quite key. This magenta line, this Linton level, has been broken. And so we are just holding that level. The key thing is medium term. Any of you follow my work, I like to see these levels holding for a few days. So into next week is going to be really critical. Can we hold that level? Let's say 26,000. Can we hold that level? And longer term, on the longer term chart, remembering the weekly chart, we're thinking months ahead. We want to see that level holding for a few weeks. But interestingly, we have activated a very big upside target now on the weekly chart. That's the pullback that activates that target. So really quite key. Now, this morning, I did a session for London Stock Exchange Group on relative strength. And this is an area that is really great in technical analysis. You can actually watch that session. The LSEG group only allow institutional groups into the webinar, but it's here and available on the updated website. It's an hour long. Watch that session on relative strength, and it's under the resources menu and Updater's website. And so that's really great. Those free resources are there for you to make the most of your system. So here we see this is the chart for Western Digital. This is the best performing Nasdaq stock, outperforming the Nasdaq by 84% so far this year. This is relative strength normalized to 100. So that's the really key thing. I've also got the levels on this chart, and a trend channel, so we can just see that strength. Now, what's also really good is these values can be read in from the charts into your quote screen. And here we see we were up 59% in February, we were up 74% in March, and we're up 84% in April. And this just highlights, so this is 21 days ago and 42 days ago, number of trading days. This just highlights that the strong stocks get better and better, and the weak stocks down at the other end tend to get worse and worse. You can see here 54%, 47%, 42%. We're just seeing declining relative strength. So the interesting thing is that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. This is the key thing, is you struggled with the idea to buy stocks that are making new highs, that have got strong relative strength, and the risk is buying stocks that have fallen heavily is that they can keep falling. And we can just go through the list and see each of these trends. So it's really, really great for that. And you see, for example, here, this is Intel. Now, their relative strength is not as high as it was 2 years ago. But here we're seeing a really key breakout, and now the relative strength. Breaking out of triangle, you can do all the same technical analysis. Watch that video. It's going to show you. And here we're seeing the stocks that are really motoring on their relative strength. So this chart in the bottom window is literally the stock divided by the Nasdaq 100 index. So that is what shows us the relative performance. What we're really doing when we do that is we're removing the market and just looking at the stock effect. By taking the market denominator, putting it there, we're basically saying that is the true performance of the stock, regardless of what the market is doing. So here, what we're looking for is outperformance. So you can see on Micron, for example, has been a star performer, really great, but their relative strength has taken a little bit of and interestingly, Micron nudging new highs, but not yet on the relative strength. You want that confirmation. Another one that's really interesting, especially in the UK, ARM Holdings. Now, ARM Holdings has been a darling for many years, but the reality is here we see that the relative strength has been in general decline, and the stock price itself, although it's up strongly so far this year, we've got a performance of, it was up 112% in February, up 117% in mid-March, and 35% better than the index in mid-April. So we are seeing that improving. But what you can do is go and draw the trend lines as you would do on your price data, do it on the relative strength. And here what we're looking for is a break to a new high, possibly that high, to then say maybe we're in a new relative strength uptrend on ARM. And we can go and do this for any chart we want. So we've got Texas Instruments, Advanced Micro Devices. So that's really just looking at the relative strength. Here we see the price breaking higher and the relative strength breaking higher on AMD. That's confirming. So that's just looking at how you use relative strength. And that's the really key thing in terms of looking at the Nasdaq. So really quite strong there. We're seeing the futures up slightly today. Will they hold these levels? This is the really key thing. We want to see a good few days into next week holding this level and building support. And again, remember in these sessions, you can go back to the previous years, do look at Dow theory, support and resistance. All the lessons are there as part of the seminars I've been giving on the London Stock Exchange Group, third Friday of every month. So we're seeing markets just generally, we're seeing the DAX up about 0.2%. Japan was weaker. Looking at Japanese bond yields, that's the thing that I'm really watching at the moment. This is still my concern. That 250 level is really critical. So that's a chart that I definitely do still want to watch for markets and what's going on. Looking at crude oil, and interestingly, I've been looking at jet fuel. This is a really interesting chart. This is the 10-minute chart on jet fuel. This is Singapore Jet, and this is really interesting, seeing those targets being generated. Lots of things in the news about jet fuel, running short in Europe several weeks out. But at the moment, we're seeing a little downside target there on the 10-minute chart. Remembering this is for today, very short term. Looking at crude oil and gas, we're down just a couple of percent today. We were neutral in our morning call report out to our energy clients. So really quite interesting there. Taking a look at some other things, we're seeing sugar. Looked at that yesterday. This has been very bearish, just touching new lows there. And on the 60-minute chart, we've got downside targets. Another one, that orange one will turn red if it activates with a new low. And gold has been really interesting in that we have activated an upside target, but we've got a little mini downside target. This is on the 60-minute chart. That's short term. Looking at the medium term chart for gold, this target is in train. We're not yet back above the cloud on the price, although the lagging line has hung on to the price there, so that's quite key. Silver, this is less clear there, and so we have to look at the 60-minute chart. We've got, again, a mixed picture, so not so strong today. Looking at Bitcoin, a few people have asked me to look at Bitcoin, and here we can see we are breaking to another new high. So in the 60-minute chart, short-term chart for Bitcoin is strong. The daily chart, interestingly, we're just starting to move out of the cloud on the daily, not yet on the lagging line, and we are just nudging new 3-month highs there, or 2-month highs, but we do have this downtrend, a downside target hanging over us, so we do need to just take that into consideration. If you're trading Bitcoin, use the 1-minute targets. Of course, you can do them on TradingView, so you can really just anywhere you want. So you can just type in the code for Bitcoin, BTC. You'll see lots of different providers. Just go for Bitstamp, and there are the targets. That's the daily chart. And some of these providers will have slightly different data, giving you slightly different charts. But remember, you can look at these charts in TradingView. Really, really powerful there. This one I've been watching, aluminium. It's the Indian exchange making new highs there. And then, of course, Bloomberg. More and more people using the targets on their Bloomberg terminal, and we'll see them on more and more platforms. In fact, next week, I'm in the US. I'm in New York next week, and then West Coast USA the week after. Do keep an eye on the charts. And as I say, we're going to have these on more and more platforms, more and more people using them. That's it for today. Do keep an eye on your price targets and watch this Nasdaq for a new high. That's going to be the really significant thing. Can we keep this level and keep the bullishness in markets? Until Monday, have a great weekend. Happy charting, and bye for now.